Hey guys, what's up? This is Stock Retail coming to you. If you haven't heard by now, some pretty big news in after hours today. The court case against AMC that was kind of stopping the conversion and the reverse split has been settled tentatively, so the court itself needs to still approve this, but the two sides have agreed on a settlement and filed that. So AMC has filed a document on that. That's what I'm going to review in this video here. What you'll get is a walkthrough of what I see in that settlement agreement, kind of the language. What does that mean to us? There's some pretty big implications. So you need to either check the filing, check this video, check other apes DD. I always encourage you to do DD for yourself as well. So we'll walk through what is in the filing, what does that mean to us, and what's the go forward. I'll also bring us back to kind of if you've been around here a minute, I always try to focus on what I think matters. Uh, you know, this lawsuit and this settlement are really, really big news. And look at the after hours in APE and AMC. You can see both stocks are reacting pretty strongly to this news. Um, but a couple things. We're going to need to let this play out in coming days. There's going to be a lot to digest. It's big and dense news. A lot of legal language in the document. We're all going to have to understand what this means. I just suggest kind of, keeping calm and keeping moving forward as we always do. Um, and then what's more, if you look at the after hours price action right now, it's my point of view, after hours is a little more volatile and easily manipulated. So I'd like to see the price action in coming days of what's really going to happen to APE and AMC as they kind of move together and become closer to becoming one stock. So let's just go through this. First off, what you'll see in the filing is this lifting of the status quo. So the status quo means the as is, the staying as is. All that meant was there was this court case. As long as the court case was hanging over AMC's heads, they could not execute the conversion and the reverse split. They had to stay as is. So we had our APE, we had our AMC, nothing had changed. Well, now the two parties have agreed to lift the status quo, meaning they can allow the conversion and the reverse split. So that's the first thing you kind of see in the language. Just going back on that, again, being really clear on the language, the defendants and the plaintiff have agreed on lifting the status quo. There is language in this filing that also still says the court itself has to say, okay, we approve your agreement and we'll move forward. The other thing then is there's actually a payment in this settlement. And so we've got to pick apart that and understand that. And I think that impacts all of us, but here's where I want to be really careful to say I'm interpreting my first reading of this filing. And I just want to be clear that there's a chance I could even be wrong about this. So here's how I read this. It's very clear that there's payment of AMC common shares. So right now we have the APE preferred equity units and we have the AMC common shares. That's why we track the two different tickers. So if I say common shares, I'm specifically talking about AMC. That's going to matter here in a minute because what that payment looks like is basically as of the conversion, there's this settlement that's payable to, now look at this language, record holders of the common stock as of the settlement class time. So let's just pick that apart a little bit. You've seen maybe in the past with dividends, like even when we got paid APE or when we voted, there was kind of a record date that sort of locks down who owns shares and how many do they own. So this looks like, I don't quite know this sort of settlement class time. I don't know if that is the beginning of this lawsuit, what we all held when this went down, or if it's what we all hold basically as of the moment this settlement takes effect. I kind of have a feeling it's the second one, but I'm going to admit to you here, I don't know, and I need further clarification on that. So we'll look for that maybe from, John in Investor Relations or from Adam himself or others. We'll find out in coming days. But there's a date where it kind of says, as of this date, you own AMC common shares, so you're entitled to the settlement. But I actually want to pick that apart too, because you'll see language in this filing as well about the affected class or the identified class, sorry. It's my understanding what Allegheny was trying to bring forward as a lawsuit was supposedly representing all AMC common shareholders as a class. So if you owned AMC common shares, they were kind of saying they wanted to represent you. That's why I was so fired up, early on, because I was saying they don't represent me at all. I disagreed with their lawsuit entirely. But I believe, and here's where I'm saying this is belief or opinion or interpretation really, So I could be wrong. I'm no lawyer, but it's my interpretation they were attempting to represent common shareholders. So therefore, the identified classes if you owned AMC common shares. Now that matters because as of this sort of record date, you're going to receive, settlement. Now, what is the settlement? So it's one common share for every 7.5 common shares that you own. Notice that's on common shares. So I keep highlighting that's on AMC. It's not on what ape you own. And so there's language in here. Again, I've screenshot this. I've put it here. I'm going to link this in the notes so you can go to the document itself and kind of try to see for yourself. But basically, what I've screenshot here is showing you some of the math that just effectively for every 7.5 AMC you own, you would get one more AMC after this, lifting of the status quo and after the conversion actually happens. So that was the other language in there. It's settlement happens as of the conversion. So they wait until the conversion happens and kind of, impacted with the reverse split and all that. But so it's one common share of AMC for every 7.5 you own. There's kind of a critical piece of this where it says there's no fractional shares. So that was a lot like with our ape to AMC conversion, if you remember. That's the whole 10-to-1. Sort of any remainders, if you kind of remember back to, I've got a 9-year-old who's been doing long division, and so he ends up with remainders sometimes. So that remainder, if something doesn't divide neatly, is going to be paid out in cash. So they'll use their transfer agent. So if you remember computer share, they'll kind of bundle all the sort of remainders, sell those into the market at the market price. There's language all in here about that. And then through your broker, you would receive cash. So say you owned, 8 shares of AMC, for 7.5 of those, you get one new one. And so that other little bit that's left over, you can't get 1 point whatever new ones. So they'll just give you a little bit of cash for that leftover. So no fractional shares given. Okay, and then also there's no date yet. So if you can see here, the language is kind of like this requires the court approval. So that hasn't been given yet. They're acknowledging that sides have settled, but the court needs to approve. I kind of mentioned that. And then the company will give an update on the timetable for how this is all going to happen. So the market is reacting. That's just something normal about Wall Street. Once there is something known, it starts to price that in pretty rapidly. But we're still waiting for the date. So it's kind of like, I think the market's saying, okay, check, this thing is happening. The two sides have settled, so the court case is starting to be out of the way. Now we just need the date. Okay, that's actually all of it. I'm laughing because it's like, well, that's all. There's a lot between the lines here, guys. So the keys, I guess I'd focus on. Why don't I run through this again, and then I'll kind of summarize it. So that lifting of the status quo, there is a payment on this settlement, payable to all of the identified class. Again, this is just my interpretation. The identified class is AMC common shareholders, and so the settlement happens after the conversion, as of the record holders as of the settlement class time. So I kind of left that question open on when is that time. You get 1 share for every 7.5 on AMC only. It's not on ape, and that's why they've given math here that you can tell the math really is all around just AMC shares. No fractional shares. So if there's any sort of, if you don't own, say, 15, you'll get like 15 would turn into 2. But if you owned 16, that 1 left over, divide by 7, and you'll kind of get the cash. No date yet. We'll have to see. The court has to approve. Then the company, Adam will kind of communicate or whatever. So I guess I kind of went through this summary already. I think just let me cover points 5 and 6 here. So one of the things that I'm actually frankly excited about, we don't have to sit around and wait anymore and wonder what's going on with this court case and all argue and debate how we feel about the court case. It's just done. So I'm assuming, if two sides settle, I can't imagine the court says, yeah, no, we don't agree. So I've got to assume that's probably a formality. The court approves the settlement and we move forward. Remember, I was very pro, a for or a yes vote on this because AMC now is going to have access to capital. And I've talked through in a lot of other videos why this is the moment in time. Think about all of the banks melting down, all of the liquidity crisis. We're looking at, a real estate crisis that's potentially brewing. At this moment, for AMC to be getting healthy and have access to capital it's going to put us in a major position of strength. And then what I want to just really bring us back to, yes, this is big, yes, this is huge, but don't let it distract you from the fact that we're in Q2 and John Wick has been rolling and Dungeons and Dragons had a great start and great reviews. And on the heels, this week comes Mario, we're getting Air, we're getting Guardians, we're getting Fast X, Little Mermaid, Spider-Verse, Transformers, The Flash, Elemental, and I'm only naming the big movies this quarter. Quarter 2, Q2, is just going to be rolling. And it's frankly, I think it's going to be awesome. And just thinking through, we even get our spirit animal this quarter. We're getting the Transformer movies, Rise of the Beasts. It's our time. Let's go.